Hey everybody, it's Baileywiki, and this is going to be a really cool session today. In fact, this is going to be the first of what I hope is a new series. And what we're going to do today is I've actually got a special guest on named Patrick. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, nice to meet you. Nice to hear you all. Uh,
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm going to explain who Patrick is here in a second, but what we're going to talk about today is DC20. If you haven't heard of it yet, DC20, which I've got up on the screen here, just finished a record-breaking Kickstarter. Looks like it ended with about just a little over 2.2 million. Totally exceeded the initial goals because it's a really interesting new game system. It's a system that if I was going to describe it, it kind of fixes. It's very similar to D&D, I guess. It feels similar, like as far as gameplay, but it kind of fixes all the problems with D&D or many of the problems if you've played it for a while. And it's pulling from maybe some other game systems, but it's got a ton of new innovation and creativity. And the dungeon coach who's behind it just has really done an amazing job with it. Well, it's now ready because it exceeded its goals. We're now working on, Dungeon Coach is working on also making sure that that system isn't just in books and PDFs, but also going into VTTs. And so the reason I'm here and the reason Patrick's here is because I'm going to help. I want to see this game system not only come to Foundry, but I want to see it be the best game implementation in the Foundry ecosystem. That's what I'm shooting for. And there's already some really good game implementations, but I also want it to be the best implementation of DC20 on the market. Foundry, which we'll get into, is an extremely interesting VTT platform, but I'm going to explain why it is and why I've built a whole content channel and other things around Foundry. So with that, I want to actually get into introductions with Patrick here. Patrick is and has been really the developer of the DC20 game system for Foundry for the last, I don't know, Patrick, how long have you been working on this? It's been
mm,
months.
I would say year even. I remember I did some screenshots of first Dungeon Coach live streams about DC20, and I
Wow.
tried to implement those.
That's amazing. So, I mean, you've been working on it, and it shows too, because once what we're going to do today, and this series is really about showing everyone. You guys know I love to like explain how stuff works. So I want to explain to everybody how creating a game system works in Foundry. And there's over 200 game systems. Like Foundry is the place to go if you have a game system you want to set one up and play it on a VTT. So I want to show you how that works, and Patrick's going to help me show you how that works. But I also want to show you the development of DC20. It's already really far along, but it's going to be going through tons of changes and lots of new and interesting things over the next few months as the Kickstarter benefits kick in and as it becomes available for general public use and things like that. There's even stuff you can play with right now with the game system. So I want to show you guys what that process looks like. 'Cause maybe you're thinking of another game system, maybe you're just curious about DC20, but I want to kind of demystify that for everybody. And then just like let you follow along the development of this project for Foundry specifically. Sound good? All right. So let's kind of start with we kind of explain DC20 a little bit. So, like, what is Foundry? So, for those of you who aren't familiar with Foundry, if you've used Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds, those are two other big VTTs. Foundry is a VTT that I don't know. It feels like it started just before COVID, but it exploded. I started playing VTT on Roll20, and I got super frustrated with it. I used the free version and then I upgraded to the premium version. I just couldn't get the features, and it was just not clicking for me in a way that I like want to see my VTT work and like the things I wanted to do on it. So I discovered Foundry, and Foundry's become like my place that I play my games and I create all my content around it. It is a VTT, but it's got some interesting differences. First of all, it's relatively new. It's only a few years old, so it's got like modern software in it. It's not like legacy stuff that isn't being supported well or whatever. But it's really cool in that a couple of things. One, it's just a one-time purchase. So rather than like subscribing to something like Roll20 to get these advanced features, you actually get those plus a whole bunch more just for a single one-time purchase. So it's pretty dang affordable. But the main thing about Foundry that I love is it's extendable. it actually works with third-party modules. In fact, it's built very well for third-party modules, so much so that there's over 2,000 third-party modules. So if you ever played with like World of Warcraft and you're like, okay, I want these mods to alter the UI or do different things or introduce new functionality or automate something. I mean, Foundry has this like prolific third-party development community, many of which I've interviewed on my platform. We do a ton of content with those module developers, and it's insane what you can actually do. Like you can actually play 3D games on Foundry. Foundry's built for 2D, just like everyone's used to, but you can actually jump from a 2D game right into a 3D map, and it's like totally mind blowing. But you can do all kinds of stuff with those modules. So when it comes to my channel, and as Patrick and I have been talking about the vision for Roll20, I really want to embrace that community because it really does add a ton of just unmatchable value if you're a GM trying to create good experiences for your players. Would you say that's the main thrust of Foundry? I mean, it's not just a good VTT; it's just like a great VTT out of the box. You don't need modules to have it to make it amazing. The lighting, everything else. But what do you think, Patrick? What's the selling point of Foundry if you were going to
Yeah.
distill it?
I also started with Roll20, and I jumped into Foundry pretty fast. And yeah, modules community behind that game system is, I would say is the best. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it really is. It's awesome to see. Okay, so with that said, for those of you who don't know me, and we're going to jump into this, I'm Baileywiki. I have this channel on YouTube. I'm on Patreon and Discord. I have a Discord server, and I'm very active in the Foundry community. In fact, I only do content for Foundry. It's helped me focus, and it's helped me really kind of go wide and deep in this huge ecosystem, this global ecosystem of Foundry developers and users and things like that. So what do? I create tutorials. If you've ever tried to use Foundry, you'll probably end up using one of my getting started tutorials. We do stuff like that all the time. We cover Foundry basic features. We cover modules, new and interesting modules that are out, or we cover really popular modules, like how to use them. So we'll do tutorials on them. So that's kind of what my channel's about. If you watch any of my videos, you'll see a bunch of artwork, like maps and things like that. That is ultimately what we do. We create maps and content that's specifically built for Foundry. So if you're going to jump into Foundry and you want 1,000 maps and you want tons of what we call prefabs, and you want to be able to drop in a 6-level galleon into the middle of an ocean, that's what we do. And we use some of these more popular modules to make all of this really amazing stuff happen. We even produce 3D content if you venture into the 3D side of things, which is a ton of fun. But that's essentially, how we do what we do is people eventually come in, hopefully, and subscribe to our stuff. So with that said, I'm putting my resources and my brand and my following and other things around DC20 because I want to see it be really, really successful in Foundry. So let's talk about quickly, Patrick, what's in a game when we talk about building a game system in Foundry, like what do we mean by that?
yeah, so
And what I'm going to do is
it's
I'm going to bring up the admin panel of Foundry, and we might use this as a bit of a backdrop to describe what we're doing.
yeah, so game system is implementation of rules from in our case DC20, some from books into the virtual tabletop. We can create rulings and create a lot of automation for different actions that players can take. We are creating character sheet for players to interact with, to use specific features, maybe some weapons, and in Foundry we try to do it as user friendly as it is possible. And also we want to provide a lot of customization and a lot of automation. And also
Go
this
ahead.
automation, we want to put it into hand of players or GMs. We don't want to hide it behind hard-coded functions. So that's the main goal, that player will be able to create item and fully automate it by himself, and he don't need to rely on us hard coding some behavior.
And that's so good. And there is a huge spectrum. I'm showing this up here. There's 258 game systems currently published on the Foundry, officially published on the Foundry directory. You will not find DC20 on here. If you guys want to play around with DC20, it's got an install manifest. You just paste it. I'll put it in the description for the video. You just paste it into this field right here and click install, and it'll actually install the DC20 system. And I think the latest, which is 0.8, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Now, game systems is a whole spectrum. Some of them are super basic. Some of them are fully automated. I would say one of the best game systems on Foundry is Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It's so good that if you're a Pathfinder player and you're playing on any other VTT, you probably should check out Foundry's implementation of it. It's just really, really well done. It's got a good character sheet. It's got a bunch of automation built into it. And so when Patrick and I were talking about the vision for DC20 and what he's already done, DC20's really looks a lot and feels a lot more like the Pathfinder implementation, just in terms of like quality and automations and things like that. Why does automation matter? Well, it just helps you get in and start playing the game, right? You can create your own stuff. You can move content in and out of it. But when you can automate things, and even getting to the point where you can like automate combat and stuff like that, it just means you get to start playing the game and you get to learn the rules as you go, and you don't have this like huge learning curve. Now, the other end of the spectrum is D&D 5e. In Foundry, D&D is not very automated, at least not out of the box. The reality is it's so popular that third-party module developers like Tim Posney came in with things like MIDI-QOL, MIDI-QOL, and it's a module that then automates a ton of what D&D was not in, as far as the system implementation, what it wasn't intended to automate out of the box. So there's ways to close the gap, but the way that, Patrick, you're approaching it seems like you're really kind of building a lot of that automation into the core.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so you mentioned some things that are in a game system. I'm going to show everyone what the current DC20 implementation looks like, but there's things like character sheets, how you interact with those character sheets. There are things like compendium content, so like everything from like character classes and backgrounds to weapons and items and armors and spells and things like that. So we're going to go into like kind of what those elements are, maybe show some examples of what's already deployed for DC20. But a lot of the content that's going to come out is going to start with the Kickstarter crew and sort of meeting their kind of what their initial benefits were for backing the project. And so that content will eventually become published out to John Q. Public and everyone else who wants to access that for the Foundry system. So let's jump into it. I've got the screen in front of me, and I showed you guys all those game systems. I actually installed DC20. It was super one-click install after I pasted that manifest. I do also want to show you have add-on modules. And by the way, what we're looking at is we're looking at kind of the back-end server of Foundry. Foundry is not like a web service like Roll20. When you buy Foundry, you buy the server software, and that installs on your local machine. Now, there's hosted services like Forge and others that you can play Foundry just like you would Roll20 online. But what you're looking at is my local installation of the Foundry software, and we're looking at the server backend. We're about to jump into a DC20 world here in a second. But I wanted to point out that we have add-on modules, and there are currently, if we let it load, 2,400 add-on modules that work with Foundry. So that's a ton. And I've just got some of them here. Some of them are my modules. These are content modules. Some of them are things that extend the capabilities of Foundry. It's not uncommon to have 100 modules. You don't have to. You can play Foundry vanilla right out of the box, but I just wanted to familiarize you with that. Now, I have two worlds that I've created, a D&D 5e and a DC20. By the way, to create a world, you just create a new one. Maybe this is my DC20 World 2. You pick the game system, assuming you've got it installed, and you just click Create World, and it gives you this little box here. So let's jump into DC20 and see what we're working with here. By the way, we're on Foundry version 12. For those of you who are watching this, it's July 8th, 2024. We're on Foundry version 12. Now I'm going to log into my server. I can add players and stuff. They would hit this login page and they would log into a game. I'm going to log in as a game master. And now I'm looking at a world. I've just preloaded a couple of my maps into this world just so we have some kind of backdrop to work on. Now, before I get into this, Patrick, what can you give us a little idea of what it takes to make a game system? Like, what did you use when you jumped in to like start making a Foundry system?
Yeah, so when idea came to my head that I want to create DC20 implementation, at least fan-made at the beginning, I started to do some research and I found a guide on Foundry VTT community wiki. Yeah, that one, system
Hmm.
development boilerplate, and I would say it's very good first step uh, when you want to start your journey with developing your own game system. It
And I'll
has a
link
lot of
this. I'll link this in the video description as well. So you kind of use this to orientate yourself around what you needed to make and how you would approach it.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, exactly. Uh, yeah, so I was never good in uh, uh, CSS. So
Mm-hmm.
for that, I would say I was using ChatGPT at the beginning to
Oh,
create
great.
some CSS and some styling
Mm-hmm.
for those first character sheets.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Uh, yeah,
It's great.
and when it comes to coding, there is API for Foundry is pretty good, but
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to just jump into code and see how it is created at at the code level. So I jumped into DND5E implementation and then straight into Foundry VTT code repo.
Great. So I'm looking at the page for the D&D 5e implementation in Foundry. So you just kind of like reverse engineered and referenced a lot of what had been done in that
Yeah, I just
system. Hmm.
yeah I just cloned that repo and scanned through it when I was looking for some specific behavior.
Amazing. Okay, great. So that's kind of how you started. Now I've heard there's some things that make it easy for like non-coders to be able to start to implement a system within Foundry. Maybe I'll cover those in another video. But for the most part, you need to have some development capabilities, right, to come in and like stand up a system like this.
Mm. Yeah, that would be useful for sure. It's Foundry is not the best way to learn coding, I would
Right.
say.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so once you do that, you come in here and then you create a system. Now, we launched this world. This is a world that I can invite players into and we can jump in and start doing battles and things like that. But let's go through like what's included in the system. So maybe we can start, I don't know, where should we start? With the compendiums?
Mm. Yeah, I think we can start with compendiums.
Okay.
It's
So what happened that you guys didn't see is I launched this world and it introduced all these compendiums. Compendiums are what Foundry uses to contain content and content of different types. So you can see all these are tagged as DC20 RPG. This is all the ones that were introduced by the system. I happened to just create a folder called a DC20 and I dragged them all in here just to keep things clean. But you can see like all the Baileywiki content and other modules, things like that. This is just how I chose to organize it. So DC20 out of the box introduces all of these compendiums. You got ancestries, backgrounds. Let's just open some of these up. You can see under ancestries, you've got quite a bit of content already loaded. And I think it gives you everything you need to create at least level one character, right? Like how
yeah,
far does
level
this
level
go?
1 and level 2.
Okay, level one and level two characters are already loaded with all their ancestries. You've got this is just a starting background, it looks like.
Yeah,
You've got
there
all
are
your
no backgrounds
classes.
yet.
Yep. I can't wait. I just saw a video from Dungeon Coach on the Spellblade. Can't wait to play one of those. And then you've got some kind of starting equipment. It's relatively light right now. This is a lot of the content that's going to be coming out now that the Kickstarter's over, right? You've got
Yeah.
kind of your meat and potatoes of equipment. Monsters is empty currently. I think there's going to be some test monsters coming soon, maybe. But that's going to be coming out with with all the other stuff. You've got some sample rules. And I'm saying this because depending on what system you're building and how much you want to provide, you can provide any amount of this content for free, or part of it can be behind paywall, or you've got to buy the books in order to get the content. There's different ways that creators of systems sort of create the content. But they're going to end up creating these kinds of things, right? All your spells and stuff like that. Anything that you want to say? Well, here, just even opening this up, we can see we've got, a DC20 branded experience, right? And we can see some of the stuff that's going on in here. Is there anything you want to point out, Patrick, as far as like components of this? Feel free to direct me around.
I don't think so. Right now, I think we can just maybe some. If you go to Advanced tab, for example, you can add. Right now, that one is from the compendium, so you need to drop it, import it. But you can create some effects that would modify actor stats. For example, give your PC more health, or some condition immunity.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's where that automation stuff comes in, where you can just automatically have weapons issue certain kinds of, damage and alter stats and things like that.
Yeah, and if you jump into Firebolt, for example, and into Advanced tab, you can see that there is conditional formula created for that cantrip, because if you look at the description, it says that it has cantrip passive, that it deals more damage for targets that are burning. So right now there is possibility to create items with those kinds of conditions configured, just like that Firebolt, and those will be applied on your. Those will be checked. Your target will be checked if it's burning, and if it is, it will add +1 damage.
Amazing. And so for those of you who haven't used something like this is actually like pretty simple to use. But if you're scared of this at all, a lot of these things will come pre-configured, like all this, the core official spells and things like that will become pre-configured for all these different kinds of conditions and things like that. And then of course, third parties can add, they can create whole compendiums of brand new items that never existed. They'll come in here and code the item with whatever automation it needs, and then you can pick up like whole compendiums of new spells and items, things like that. At least that's how generally Foundry works with other game systems. But that's awesome. Correct. This is incredible. This lets you build anything you want and automate it. Where that ends up coming into play is you can automate combat. You can have it so that you can fully automate, not even having to know the rules. You can just cast a spell and it will account for what it needs to account for. You can do things like automating animations. You can cast a fireball spell and it'll actually show a fireball exploding on the map, or it'll show a fire bolt streaking across the map and hitting a target in an animated way. There's third-party modules that create animations for you. So that's why these things are helpful, is because not only is it great out of the box, but then third-party module developers can make it just like make your breakfast for you. Okay, so you've got all of this stuff, and you've got a bunch of these things already built out. If you want, again, if anybody wants to test it, they can go install the manifest URL for the system, and they can get in here and start playing around with it. But the other big thing about a game system is the character sheet, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you guys what it means to create a new actor here. Let's create a new actor. Let's call it Baileywiki. And you can see my new actor now here is in the right. And this is this really cool character sheet. So right off the bat, awesome. So now we can put our character artwork in here. If you guys aren't familiar with the system, it's got like 4 attributes rather than 6. There's things that are, I think, just intuitively more simplified with the system, but you'll recognize things like classes, subclass, ancestry, and you've got different tabs here that will include, like all of your stuff, your class features, here, ancestry traits, you know, and other things that come in the system, right? Here's your spells. Here's, you know, certain attributes that you might have. You might be blinded, you might be bleeding, things like that. I assume these are toggling them on and off.
Yeah.
Yep. And then this is going to be where you can like keep notes and, you know, maybe put your bio and things like that. So let's look at how this works. So, you know, we've got this open. Now let's say we want to drop in a spell. So we'll go
Yeah.
to our spells compendium and let's give our guy a firebolt here.
And now it was added to
There we go.
spells. Yeah.
So you see, I just dropped it onto the character sheet and it put it right into the spell. So let's, you know, drop in dancing flames.
And also, if you would hover over those, here are tooltips for those spells, and also there are those little circles on. Yeah, here you can, with a quick glance, you can just see what this spell will do. So it will roll a spell check versus physical defense, and it will deal 2 damage.
And when you click
Yeah, and
it, it
also,
expands it out to these other helpful.
yeah, those are enchantments. That this is something that DC20 does. There won't be that much spells here, but all of those will be boosted with extra enchantments that you can increase damage, for example, or range or radius of explosion and stuff like that.
Amazing. I love it. This is so good so far. So, you know, that's how this content works. Compendiums have the content, you put them into your character sheets, and that's how you build your characters. There's a level up system that's here as well. But let's talk about that. Like another great thing with like really good system implementations is like leveling up wizards. Has that been talked about? You know, the ability to
Yeah,
do that.
we can start with level up wizard. So you can go into classes compendium.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
And
there was anything to see.
choose your class and just drop it on your character sheet.
Okay. So choose my class. So if I want a
There is
barbarian, I just grab this
yeah
one, right? Okay.
yeah and drop it, and now you have your advancement. You can hover over your items and see those features.
So is this what comes standard with a barbarian?
Yeah, those are standard barbarian features. You can apply advancement.
Okay.
It will
Ah,
show your stats, how those will increase, and
amazing.
some other useful thing. And now you can go into features. It's third tab.
Let's see. Features. Sorry, where'd you say it was?
It was third tab from the left side
This
here.
one?
Yeah, this
This.
book,
There we go.
and it was added automatically. And also, we can now do a level up. We will show how talents work. So now you have talent in this feature. And it's also, users can create their own classes. It's fully configurable. We can show that
Wow.
later. So you can grab any feature from other class, just drag and drop it from compendium.
And that's a great thing about this system is you can really mix and match tons of stuff. So if I want
Yeah.
you
So
know,
bardic
yeah,
performance is a spellcasting mastery feature, so you can just toggle spellcasting on above that table. Yeah, and now
okay.
when you apply that advancement, you will get some boosts from taking a spellcaster
I've got mana
feature.
points
So
now. Yeah, I've
yeah,
got cantrips
cantrips,
and known
spells.
spells. Awesome. Amazing.
Yeah, and if it gets cluttered, that table, you can just turn on edit mode on the left top side of your sheet.
Edit mode. Here.
Above your name, yeah,
Yeah.
and you can create your own tables to move items to, or just uh,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
here you can rename those if you want to. Yeah, and you can just drag and drop stuff there. So, for example, if there are some features that you don't need or don't use that often, you can just drag them there.
I love it.
And
So I
yeah,
could create one that is combat favorites. So I just
yeah, we
have
can jump.
everything I care about. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and you can just also sort those tables too with those arrows on the left side. Here, yeah, you can just move
Oh, I
those.
see. Move them up and down.
Yeah, and also with favorites, if you turn off edit mode, you can see this little star on the right.
There you
You
go.
can add items to favorites, and then on the first tab, you can see those items here.
Love it.
So you can keep
So
you
I
can
can even
keep
apply it to
everything.
weapons and
Yeah,
other equipment, things like that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
to everything.
Inventory, technique, spells.
Yeah,
Amazing.
you can keep everything you need, for example, during combat on one single tab.
I love it. This is so fun. Great. Well, so those are the big components. Anything else that we want to cover as far as like kind of what's in the system today?
Mm, we can cover automation, I think, with combat, with damage, because
Yeah,
in,
let's
in
do
DC
it.
in DC20 you don't roll damage dices, you just have flat numbers, and each 5 you beat some kind of difficulty class.
Mhm.
It would be physical defense or some other stuff. You just deal more damage. So you can drop. I mean, you
I don't
have.
have any I don't have any ready-made users here. We can, if you want, flip over to your screen if you want to show something. Would that be easier or
Okay.
some ready-made players?
Yeah, yeah. I can do that.
Okay.
John the mage, the sorcerer. Sorry. He's a halfling for some reason, so he has some halfling features too. And we have use on this group of.
Great.
So we can just start with firebolt. So as you can see, he has few more enchantments than you had, because he's a sorcerer, so he has some meta magic here, and it's also configurable that enchantments for specific item, you can configure it will be copied to some other items instead of leaving it here. So a feature like meta magic, you can configure it that way that it will be copied to all spells.
Wow.
So I think we could go just with simple firebolt. And as I'm a GM, I don't have to, but I can target those kobolds.
Mhm.
Let's say we can twin spell,
Okay.
even though twin spell is not in DC20, I think. But let's roll that firebolt. Yeah, that's so nice work with
Yes,
system
that's a
already.
third-party module that lets you just see your dice rolling over the screen.
Yeah. So we have kobolds. We see that we hit those kobolds, and we can hover over damage, and we can see that it's base value of 2, but kobold has fire resistance, so it's cut in half. And now we can just simply apply it. We will get a message that will allow us to revert those changes to its HP. And yeah, let's say we want to try that configured condition for burning. So let's make one burn and roll it again.
Nice.
Okay, it's a brutal hit, so it's +2 to our damage. So it would be 2 plus brutal hit. This one is burning, yeah. So you can see that one is burning, one is
Yep.
not. So
Sure enough.
if we hover I'm not sure. Can you see text?
It's probably not
Document?
going to come through. We should describe it just because of compression on
Yeah,
Discord and everything else. But it says base value. You can hover it,
yeah.
base value plus
Plus
brutal hit plus cantrip passive minus
and minus.
resistance is what
Yes. So
generated that calculation.
yeah. So if we would try to do some math, so it's 2 base damage plus brutal hit is +2, so it's 4. Cantrip is +1, cantrip passive,
Hmm.
so it's 5, and cut by half from resistance is 3, because we always round up in DC20.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we can also apply that damage, and that's how automation works right now.
So good. Patrick, I'm excited about getting something automated. I can see fireballs ripping across
Yeah,
the
I
scene.
saw a few people already trying to use automation animation. This
It's so
that's
good.
how model called? That model called? I don't.
Well, there's yeah, automated animations is one.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, the module that kind of provides the animations for it, but automated animations lets you build the animation so that if you're sending a firebolt, it knows to use the kind of the firebolt
yeah.
animation with
So
it.
so when it comes to some automations, also there are. It's not yet configurable, but some conditions like burning deals damage at the start of your turn.
Hmm.
So it is automated. We can just roll for initiative. In DC20, you don't have one single roll that you will do for initiative. It all depends on actions you did before combat. So
Hmm.
there is initiative button here, and then whatever you roll will be your initiative roll.
Hmm.
So for us, it will be medicine.
Hmm. Okay.
Not that good roll, so we lost against our encounter DC.
Hmm.
But we can add those kobolds into initiative, and now that we lost, it will know where to put those. So
Interesting.
we can just we will use our AP, so we have nothing, and also we will jump to that kobold that is burning, and we can see he took 1 damage from burning.
Wow.
And now we go to John. John has nothing to do because he's out of AP,
Hmm.
so we can just jump to another target, and now his AP is back.
Wow.
Because yeah, it's important. This AP OT20, there is a lot of reactive gameplay.
Hmm.
You have a lot of ways to make side of your turn. You are not.
Waiting for your
Yeah,
turn. There's a
yeah,
lot that you can do uh, throughout the gameplay.
exactly, and it's good. It's worth to create AP side of your turn, because in during your turn it's not that hard to keep track of those, but
Hmm.
outside of your turn, when you are 15 minutes, one example, you
Hmm.
can get lost.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure. But from a gameplay perspective, it's so interesting to be able to play just as the situation changes rather than waiting,
yeah,
45 minutes for your turn to come
uh,
around.
I, I I have some epic stories to share with my game group. Uh,
Oh, that's so
when
good.
they jumped one hack, and I will make her escape so quick and had good reactions that they killed her in well yeah.
Amazing. See, that's what it's supposed to feel like. I love it. Like everybody's surprised. The game's always changing. It's like a real time. It keeps people engaged.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's
awesome. And
important
you
part.
built in the automation to allow for that so that we can just play instead of having to remember, oh, this is applied over here and that's over there. You've kind of built that in already.
Yeah, there is a lot of how to come, but there is some is already working, so that's something to
Well,
play
that's
with.
great. Well, so, I was going to ask questions around automation. We covered that. Will this systems, heck yeah, it's going to work with third-party
Yeah,
modules. And I've already got some of the best module developers in the industry, like Ripper and Tim Posney and others, saying, "Hey, we want to help support the system." So my goal is for this to really embrace what makes Foundry special and what makes it really unique among the VTTs and makes it a lot of fun to play. And third-party modules is part of that equation. Foundry itself, just core Foundry, is really awesome. So if you never want to play with modules, you'll probably have a better experience just with what you built into core, because you built so much into core, Patrick, that you don't need those third-party modules to like really kind of make it fun gameplay. Those are just added, right? If you want animations, great. Those will be there. But what you built into the core just makes it just automatically a better, a
Yeah,
superior sort of experience.
it was important to me to even though I very want to leave last word for the DM. So
Yeah.
probably stuff like I don't know, auto applying.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if I want to implement that.
Hmm.
I see place modules for that
Yeah,
instead
that's a
of core
great
game.
place for a MIDI qual to come in and fill in the rest of the. So MIDI qual, for those of you who don't know, you can set the amount of automation you want all the way up to full automation. And I, of course, crank mine up to full automation because I don't want to bother with applying damage. It turns out that MiniQual's smarter at applying it than I ever was. But that's my preference. And not every GM wants to do that. Some GMs, you want to roll regular dice and you want to you want to do pen and that's
Yeah.
great.
Also one thing when it comes to DM's final word, you can modify here as a DM, so
Yeah,
I can increase those numbers and apply
love it.
those.
So good. Let's finish off with this. What's coming next? Like, are there any things that anything you're working on next? And I'll be
Yes.
giving updates in general on like DC20 and what's going to be available to Kickstarter. You guys can go to, we'll talk about where you can go for information after this, but you can go directly to Dungeon Coach. They have a Discord. I'll link that. But what's coming next for you as far as you're thinking about the system development?
So my three main goals for next few weeks that system is complete wizard. So
Mm,
you can just click one button here and it will take you applying class stuff and
yeah.
ancestry stuff, but choosing weapons and distributions of your action points and skill
Wow.
points.
Yeah.
Right now you can see that you have still some attribute points to spend or
Hmm.
still have some skill
Skills.
points.
You want to make it so that somebody doesn't even have to know the system. You just
Yeah,
want to walk them
exactly.
through it. I love that.
Yeah, so that's my first goal. My second goal is even more automated. There are damage here plus one damage there in
Hmm.
DC20 that are not yet automated.
Hmm.
That is also why DM can still modify those values
Hmm.
as a
Yep.
final judge. Uh, Increase options for players to automate those things.
Great.
And my third thing is something all module. So I thought about creating NPC sheet because right now you have this NPC sheet and you can on it or
Hmm.
drag and drop in DC20 familiars or druid wild that has bunch of traits you can pick during creation of that animal form. For example, about NPC sheet that will have all on it.
Mm.
For example, wild shape will have all those wild shape traits,
Hmm.
and then you can just grab that sheet, select what traits you want.
That's cool. That's huge. I mean, those three things together are would be amazing. So, what to do from here? Subscribe to the channel if you want to follow. I'll be building a playlist to cover the development of DC20 and Foundry. But if you want to get in, or even just get into the communication, so I'm going to link some things in the video description. One is going to be the Discord for DC20. That's where everything gets talked about as far as DC20 goes. There's a VTT channel in there, but there's not a specific Foundry channel. If you're interested in Foundry specifically and you want to have that conversation, um, Eventually, there's going to be a DC20 channel on the Foundry Discord. We have some steps to go through to get to that point. But until that happens, I'm going to create a space on my Discord. I'll link to it from the video description. There will be a couple of DC20 channels in there. One's just a general DC20 conversation channel to talk about like what's happening and what's new. There will be some, we'll post things like the new manifest URLs and things like that as they come about. And then there's also a specific channel for developers, those who want to participate or help in the development of the platform. So if you're a developer, if you just like building content, there's gonna be a lot of content to port over, things to code, like coding spells and items, stuff like that. There's gonna be a lot of work involved to make this come about and actually get born. So if you're interested in helping with that, come make yourself known on that channel as well. And then, we'll be communicating with you as time goes on. It's also, if you're a module developer and you want your module to work well with the DC20 system, come let us know on in that channel, and we'll see about how to help you make sure that you're getting your stuff working with it. Ripper's already working on things. Tim Posney's working on things. Others, Adif, who's on my team that does mass edit, he's already working on DC20 support. So again, if you're interested, just come to that channel and let us know. We'll make sure you get funneled into the right spot. Anything else to say or ask around help, Patrick?
The biggest amount of create, like putting rules, those compendiums.
Yep.
Especially things used as tooltips.
Right.
All those tooltips are grabbed from conditions here.
Yes.
So stuff that I can just grab to a mystical defense, maybe a little tooltip will show up with some content about it.
Yes, 100%. And those are that's those little details that are going to help us who find the system interesting, but we haven't mastered it yet, to come in here and really start getting productive quickly. Great. Well, thanks, Patrick, for just building a really great system. And come join our Discord and let us know how you'd like to get involved. In the meantime, we'll be back soon in the DC20 series. Thanks, everybody.